Hello, everyone, and we are live on the Literacy View. So, we're a few minutes early to give people a chance to get on. And of course, Judy and I did not realize that tonight is the Academy Awards, and we should get an Oscar for flubbing this one. But it's okay because people who will be joining us today have something to do if they're not interested. Quite honestly, I don't even know who's nominated. I don't follow it. I don't even know what's going on. Do you? Do either one of you know?
I have no idea. I haven't been to the movie theaters forever. So yeah, I'm with you, Faith.
Okay, Judy, what about you?
This year, not too much. I haven't gone to the movies that many times this year, but I'm definitely not dressed for the Oscars. I'm not gonna lie. I'm wearing sweatpants and a sweater. What are you wearing tonight, Faith, for the Oscars?
I am wearing my merch, and it is
Don't
make me press the BS button because the topic tonight is going to want to make lots of people press that BS button. I know it. What do you think?
I think so too, Faith. And the good thing is, if you can tune in tonight, we will also be releasing this on Tuesday. Now, the really good thing tonight is A, you should all be sharing the link to this right now. B, we will still upload it on Tuesday. C, the chat is going to be wide open, so we can't wait to hear your comments. We've already seen some comments online, which we'll also be discussing, but I'm thinking it's going to be a really fun night. What do you think, Faith?
I'm ready. I am totally ready. In the meantime, we have a guest with us today. We didn't get started yet, but I love your name, Perk. Is that short for something?
It's actually a nickname that I've had forever. And I just go by it. And it's great because people remember it because how many perks are there? And so I've just used it my whole life.
I love it. Perk me up. We need to be perked up tonight. Or, give someone some Percocet.
All right. So right now, everybody who's jumping on, you're sharing this with a friend, your husband, your colleague, your principal, your administrator, another mom or dad that's fuming about technology and going crazy. This is an emotional topic, so we want word to spread out. We want to hear people, and this is a safe space. It's almost like, isn't the Literacy View almost like therapy, Faith?
Well, you know what? It's a lot of fun, and that's what we all need, right? We need a lot of fun, and when we're discussing serious topics, the only way to get through something serious is to laugh a little, right? We have to lighten it up. But this is a serious conversation tonight for many parents out there. So we could get started now.
And educators in general. Educators in general.
Right. Teachers, anyone in education, parents. I know this is a concern of yours, and that is the overuse of technology. So what started this as a breaking news type episode was Judy posted an article in our group, and it was entitled iPads in Kindergarten, YouTube videos at snack time. Parents are pushing back on screens in the early grades. And it got a boatload of comments. I couldn't believe it. So we looked at each other and we said, all right, we have to discuss this. And then shortly after Judy posted this article, I found another article that was somewhat related. And that article is entitled Logged In, Tuned Out, 15 years and billions of dollars later, what has learning tech accomplished? So, and we're shaking our heads, and from the sounds of it, not much. So we have a guest with us today.
Wait, Faith, before you go there, I know my sister tells me I interrupt, and I think I will get better. But what value and promise do you have for our audience today? You know, we want them to stick around. The Oscars are on tonight, Faith. So we have tough competition, but we know we could outdo the Oscars.
I know. Faith and Judy, the Oscars. You know, honestly, I'm thinking red carpet, Faith and Judy. I don't know. But if this is,
we're going to get nominated for an award one day.
Maybe. Look, this is a tough conversation to have. So what will people get out of this? I hope that people feel justified, number one, in their concerns, that they're not overreacting at all if they feel that there is just too much tech taking over our classrooms. And hopefully that they can advocate for change and realize that they're not alone. So that's what we're going to try to do here today. So we have a guest with us, Perk. We're so happy to have you. Perk, what made you want to join us in this conversation?
Well, I have to tell you, I did not ever hear of the Literacy View until a couple days ago.
Well, now you're going to be watching and listening.
Yes. So a friend of mine posted the article, the first article that you referenced, knowing that I'm like crazy about that topic. And I read it and I'm like shaking my head the whole time. And I then turned around and posted it, and somehow we connected. And I think when Monica, who I will refer to, she is a friend and my colleague, as well as a co-author. We've written several books together. And our latest book dedicates a chapter all about the overuse of screen time, which is one of the chapters that I wrote, because I am extremely passionate about it. I know I'm the oldest one on this little panel, and so I have been in education I think I am for a really, really long time. So I have seen education go through lots of different changes over the years, and specifically in regards to literacy. But I believe now that we're looking at many broader impacts of technology, not just on literacy, but on every aspect of children's development. Brain body development is just not in a great place right now. We know that the rates of mental and physical health diagnoses are skyrocketing. We know our children are not happy. We know many educators and parents and children are struggling to find answers. And when Monica and I decided to write this book,
what is your background, Perk? I'm sorry.
That's okay. So I taught third grade, second graders. Then I coordinated, I guess what some people would call like a child study team. We called it instructional support in the state of Pennsylvania. I taught special ed, and then I retired in 2015 and started my own consulting company. And that's when I started writing the books, and I have a conflict resolution mat that I'm, trademarked, and just trying to still make a difference, because in about 2005, that's when we really started to see a lot of disturbing trends. The 90s were all about, can we please have phonics back? Because that was like the whole language debacle. And then, we kind of addressed that. But then all of a sudden, it was just language issues and fine motor. And we were just seeing all these trends. And it was so hard. You can't Band-Aid each student. You've got to look at global interventions. And so
you right there. So
Can I stop first?
Yeah, I was going to bring you in, Judy, with
Lindsay
this.
was just asking what is the name of the book, and I don't want our viewers to not know the name of the book. That
it's called The Struggle is Real, But There is Hope. And it is available on Amazon. It's actually on sale right now. We have no control over that, but it is on sale. And I will say it is a very easy read. People who have read it have said to us they can read it like in a day or two. It's not a deep dive into one particular topic, but what it is it helps parents and educators understand a little bit brain development 101, That's probably the heaviest little chapter, but everything else is really the 4 culprits that we think are derailing our children. And then more importantly, we have like over 100 free practical strategies that parents and educators can do to address. We have a pyramid, and there's 18 skills on it. But if you don't have those skills, the pyramid's going to crumble, right? You have to have those foundational skills. And a lot of them start at home. So helping parents to understand they are really key players in children's brain and body development.
So let's stop right there. So 2005, you're talking about, over 20 years ago, where you started to see this shift. And the article talks about the years when this happened, and it kind of coincides with what you're saying.
The article was great. That
Yeah.
second article that you referenced was spot on.
Yeah. So now, Judy, we've talked about this numerous times with technology, the pros, the cons. It's here. We can't get rid of it. So now what, right? What did you think of the article, Judy? When you posted this in our group, you said like your brain is exploding from this, that you had so many thoughts. Well, now's your chance. What kinds of thoughts were rolling around in your head about this article?
So, the Literacy View has trained me to move away from just emotion. But I have to be honest, I got very emotional as I was reading, especially Article 1, because it talked about and it was almost like validating, because it talked about so many things that I'm seeing in the classrooms. I see kids on iPads continuously in all schools. I see even universal screeners for little babies, for like 5-year-olds. I don't really understand why they're being screened on an iPad, because I can't even understand how that data would be accurate, because there's no guarantee a kid even knows which key to press and so forth. I'm seeing state exams in literacy and in math being administered on computers, when I know all the research has been saying that there's a connection between handwriting and learning how to write. And many of our kids haven't even solidified these skills of holding a pencil. And many kids are struggling to write on, using a pen and paper or a pencil and a paper. And now we're asking them, even 3rd graders, to take a state assessment on a technological tool. And all I keep thinking of is, where is the research to say, hey, that is the best approach, not for teachers, not for people that are scoring these assessments, but for the students. And I think that what we're forgetting very often is, what does the research say? How are we making decisions? And what is best for kids? And I'm not going to say that there are no tools out there that aren't helpful for kids, but are we monitoring the research? Are we monitoring what's best for our students? Where are we getting the evidence? And are we making instructional decisions that are sound? Because I am very concerned. I am freaked out, Faith and Perk.
I can't even keep my mouth shut, because I completely agree with you, Judy, 100%. I've done research. I know what the ramifications are of what we have exposed our children to. And that the overuse of screen time also negates the importance of unstructured creative playtime, because when they're on a screen, they're not out playing, right? And so we're looking at gross motor skills that are behind, fine motor skills. You talk about handwriting. I mean, I am like the handwriting, like, I don't know what. It is so important to me that kids be able to have an efficient system of writing. It's a trigger for all the misbehaviors many of the times, because they don't know how to get their thoughts down, because the writing is just not efficient. But when you look at all the problems that we're starting to see in Pennsylvania alone, we have a 300%, I think it is, increase, not 300, 42%, sorry, 42% increase in myopia and other vision issues. And these vision issues are affecting reading. If kids can't track, if kids have issues with their visual perception and their eye teaming and like, how can we expect them to read even with the best of instruction? So they're having a lot of other issues because they are on screens, not only for a length of time, but at the age they start on them. You know, the babies, the toddlers.
So in this article, actually in both articles, they talked about how children aren't socializing.
Mhm.
You know, they're not talking to each other. They're not getting practice in speaking. They're just being put on computers instead. If, let's say, it's raining out, there's inclement weather, so they're being put on, you know, a YouTube show or something like that.
Yeah.
So could we talk a little bit about just kids socializing skills? I mean, this was a big problem, especially since COVID. We've never recovered from this. And this just exacerbated whatever happened during COVID. So could we discuss that a bit? Perk?
So ironically, speech and language concerns were one of those early trends we started to see. And now there is such an increase in kids who have speech and language needs. So they don't have the articulation, they may not have the language concepts, and they don't have that pragmatic language that is your social skills. How do you ask for something? How do you talk to somebody? How do you go make a friend? How do you ask for someone to sit with you in the cafeteria or play with you out at recess? It's a huge concern. They're not playing. Like, think about when kids dress up or they play at the vet center or the kitchen center in preschools and so forth. If they're not doing that, they're not developing their language. So it's so critical. We're just starting a little program here for grandparents who are babysitting. Like, what are some things that grandparents can do when on their babysitting day that will nurture some of these skills that are sadly lacking, you know, for many reasons?
Yeah, well, it's so tempting. Judy, I don't know about you, but when I had little kids, you know, if I needed to clean the house, you know, I put Sesame Street on because at least I thought that was educational.
I was putting on Leapfrog, Letter Sound Factory. And listen, I'm not going to say that everything is terrible, but what is the dosage? What are we using? Has there been any norming? And that's the other thing that I got from the article, both articles. We haven't really had much guidance and norms. And I know one of the articles mentioned, you know, the pediatrics departments. Have they given us enough guidance to understand what's normal? Because I think what's happening is we cannot say technology is not important, right? It's the future, AI, all of this. But are we regulating things? Because I think unless we start setting regulations, monitoring what the research is saying is a healthy dosage, monitoring what we're using, because you know what? A lot of the stuff that's coming into our schools is big business. And I've said this on 1,000,001 episodes. We can't always assume that what's coming into our buildings is the best technology on the market. It's who got the best deal, who had the most money. And I'm not going to name the product that I'm thinking about, but I guess a lot of viewers could probably guess. If you want to guess in the chat, you could guess. A couple of people are there. But there's a lot of crap that doesn't even have a lot of research. And I'm like, why are we even using this tool? There's much better research or evidence probably supporting a different tool. It's just infuriating. And I want to thank Leslie. She's here, Faith. She said she nominates Faith and Judy. Finally, we have somebody nominating us for the Oscar of Literacy No BS. Faith, congratulations. You made it to the red carpet tonight.
Well, but you know, the American Academy of Pediatrics has given guidelines. I personally don't think they're strict enough, but I mean, they've been. Yeah, they have. They have, like, they're suggesting like no screens before 2, and then some limited screens. But here's the difference. Like, Faith and Judy, when you were talking about when you were raising kids, you did the exact same thing I did. You watch a little Mr. Rogers or, Sesame Street. But here's the thing, and I tell parents this today because I totally get it. Sometimes you just need a shower by yourself, but
It's true.
watching TV is very different on brain development than being on a screen. There is not the dopamine release that is built into the games and the things that are on screens because they're all money makers. So if kids are watching something on TV, if they have to do something because you need to get something done or it's a rainy day, pick TV over a screen, because the research is really clear that it's not going to do quite the damage and change those neural pathways like screens will.
That's
That's
very
really
interesting. That's
interesting.
interesting. But Faith,
Really interesting.
sorry,
Yeah.
Faith.
What?
Here's the problem. A lot of people canceled cable. I canceled it. I don't even know how to turn on the TV anymore. And I don't know. A lot of people
I have 2 remote controls for the
I have
TV.
no idea what I'm doing. I think, and you know what really struck me? That one of the articles said that, kids used to say they want to be a first responder,
Right.
and so forth. But now the kids say, I want to be a YouTuber or a live streamer or an influencer. Faith and I aren't that. We don't even know how we got into podcasting, Faith, right? That's another story. We can't even believe we're podcasters, but we grew up wanting to be educators. That was our real dream. But all of a sudden, kids want to be podcasters, and that's okay, because it is a form of communication, but is it at a detriment to our kids? And the other thing that, the elephant in the room is, I think that this is impacting society in general. I think a lot of adults, whether we want to face it or not, we ourselves are addicted to social media.
That's something I just want to say. They said that in the article. How can we expect kids to stop themselves from, going on YouTube or looking something up when we as adults have a problem that we can't even stop ourselves from looking at the phone? Or I just read something recently that this woman took a trip to a spa and there were, no phones allowed. There was no cell phones allowed. And she kept feeling the need to take out her phone, and she would catch herself, and she didn't even realize how many times she would go to her phone. So if we can, as adults, control ourselves, it's impossible to have kids do it. And the other thing I wanted to bring up, when Judy was talking, it made me think of something that was said in the article. Just because kids are growing up with computers doesn't mean they're tech savvy. That
right.
was something that was so interesting in this article. Like, right away, we always think, oh, the younger generation, they know what to do, they understand everything. But no, it's really surface level. They're not really being taught to use these things correctly.
What's interesting in the article that I thought, and I have witnessed this, not in every case, but in many cases, when newer, younger teachers are hired, I always say, unless you get the old soul in a young body, which they're the best hires, because they're great. They bring all the wonderful newness that young teachers bring, but they're also humbly confident, and they know they don't know everything. But what we noticed is if there wasn't a smart board or like any kind of technological instruction that comes with some of these new programs, they didn't know what to do. Like I could go into a room and sub and teach a lesson on anything with a blackboard or, so forth.
And cheers, get it out.
And I kept my blackboard. I think I was the last blackboard in town.
Let me tell you something. I'm a huge proponent of blackboards, chalk. I love chalk.
Yes.
For handwriting, for everything. Yes. And I even said, I think on one of these episodes, soon as my grandson turns 2 years old, he's getting a chalkboard. Absolutely.
But I think it's important for people who aren't thinking the way we think. There's a reason for that. When they're learning handwriting, you want them to stand up, go up to the board, vertical writing. You want that little tiny piece of chalk in their hand that they can't hold the wrong way. It's that tripod grip. Now, when they trace the letters, go down the board and trace all the letters, they get that proprioceptive input, right? They're feeling it, what it feels like, that you don't get on a whiteboard. Then they go back to their
100%.
seats. They go back to their
I've done the
seats,
same thing.
and you hope that now they know how to do it correctly.
Right.
When my grandson, I used to babysit him before he went to kindergarten, and my goal was he was going to have a tripod grip and start his letters at the top, not at the bottom. And, you know, we would practice light, bright, and all those fun things that just naturally encourage that. And I mean, it took work. It was not automatic because developmentally, that's not what kids can do. But there's so many fun activities that you can do. You know them all, Play-Doh. And
I mean, I did the same thing when anytime I would go into a school, I would say, stand up writing, especially for the kids who struggle. It pushes the wrist up,
right?
You know, all of it. It makes your shoulders solid, your shoulder stability, you know, when you're writing. It has so many advantages to work at a stand-up chalkboard.
Okay, no, I got to go back. So if we know that there's so many benefits, nobody answered my question, and you don't have to answer my question. How did we decide that kids is taking the state assessment on a computer? Will that be accurate data for the kids? And the other thing is, you know what's going to happen? Some schools are going to make wiser decisions, and that's where equity. Yep, I'm throwing out the.
Well, and why do all the tech moguls send their kids to Waldorf schools? None of them go to any school, any public school where they have computers. They have all chosen to send their kids to Waldorf schools where they don't get technology.
Yes, that I knew.
But this is what's going to happen. Some schools are going to be like, okay, we know that they need a pen. So some schools are going to get kids pens. And then I heard some principals are like, well, we can't afford pens. So some kids are going to use a dinky computer. Some kids are going to use an iPad. So where's the equity right there? Knock it off, schools. The state test should have never been on a digital device. Screeners for little kids shouldn't have been on a digital device. We don't know if that data is accurate. I'm going crazy about it. And it makes me bonkers. And then you know what else needs to be tackled tonight? What about those computer labs? What's happening in those computer labs? What are the kids doing? Back in the 80s when I grew up, I was learning how to code in those computer labs. What are kids learning now in computer labs? I was actually programming. I was
keyboarding.
I was learning how to make a little balloon fly across the screen. I was using my brain. Now, the article mentions, and these are things that, you know, I hear from colleagues and people in the field or people that message me, kids might be watching porn if there's not good. Yes, they might be watching YouTube. They might be chatting with other friends. They might be writing to friends on Discord or little messaging things. How are we ensuring that what kids are doing in those computer labs are the best use of kids' time?
Well, they're not. And I know I had a little friend I was working with last year who was on the autism spectrum, kindergartner, and he had to take his math assessment on the computer. Well, after you did the computation, you got to play a game before you got the next computation problem. Well, guess what? What did he want to do? Play the game. So to answer your question, the assessment was not accurate because when we did it paper pencil, his results were very different. So they're not accurate. And ironically, I just it was like a message on Facebook. Our governor was talking about the bell-to-bell cell phone bills. You know, many states are changing their policies. And I messaged and said, and let's get the PSSAs off of screens. Because you're right, Judy, they take these tests on screens. It's crazy.
So Judy, you asked before, so how are these decisions made, or why are we making these decisions? Well, we aren't making the decisions. Obviously, the decisions are in the hands of people who, you know, have the power to get that message across. And, they give perks to districts and they throw in these extras. But honestly, now that we can look back, we're seeing that kids are no better off. And in fact, they're worse.
The worst.
off
Well,
than they
I'm
were.
going to play devil's advocate. I'm going to play devil's advocate, and then we should get into the chat and the comments. It's exploding. We're going to have some parents, Faith, that are going to say technology has helped their students. And I'm sure that their feelings are valid as well. And I know that schools do assisted technology assessments for kids. So I think it's important, because this is the literacy view and we have to think about all sides. And then, this is just episode 1. We will come back. We will have researchers on. There is technology that is helping a lot of students as well. So I think we have to honor that as well. Right, ladies? What do you think?
I agree, but here's what I'm going to say. It shouldn't be the norm. The norm should be kids enter kindergarten, and in those early elementary grades, they do not need screens as a whole. Granted, some of them might need something, a modification, an accommodation, that's fine. They also might benefit, go to the computer lab once a week or something, but they shouldn't have tablets that are issued to them. They shouldn't have them sent home on snow days. They should not be using screens and doing things that are not play-based, 3D, hands-on learning, which is what they need at those younger grades. It's fine to get them on technology, periodically, or maybe as they get older, but please, not when they're so young, because they need to develop those other skills. I mean, it's affecting everything. They're writing, they're reading. I don't know about you, because you specialize in literacy. I kind of am a little broader, but we're seeing a lot of kids, and the literacy profile, or the struggle in reading profile, for me has been the same profile for about 10 years. I'm seeing kids every time they come to me, their phonological skills are pretty much intact. They've got the sound, they've had good instruction, from a science-based, research-based program, but it's all vision. All their issues are in that vision channel. Their auditory channel's usually pretty good. It's the vision channel, and that is due to screens.
Now,
Not
how
being
can you
outside.
tell? I'm just curious. What are you
So-
using to make that decision that it's vision?
May I give you the profile? So here's what it looks like. So these are kids who have had really good instruction. They can sound out words. They might need a little review on some of those phonetic patterns that you would hope that all children would know. They typically have tracking issues. They transpose letters. They'll tell you that the writing is the text is blurry. The letters are moving. If you enlarge the font, if you put a yellow overlay on top of it, they'll tell you it's a little bit better. They typically get car sick if they try to read. And then when you start to dig deeper, and this is a topic that's a whole other podcast, you end up finding that they have some retained primitive reflexes, particularly ATNR, STNR, that have to do with the vision center and the occipital lobe. And they tend to not be able to image symbols. So these are the kids that when they read a word and you tell them what, they don't know what it is, and you tell them what it is, and then they see it in the next sentence or two, and it's a new word. Like every time it's a new word, or these are the kids that can't memorize their sight words. They're just, it's so hard. They try to sound everything out using those phonetic skills. They are the kids that all have a vision channel issue. And so they end up
back a little bit, Perk. So just because that is our specialty.
I knew that was coming, Faith.
Well, we have to talk about this. So in reading, the most common issues would be auditory. And the types of things you mention are very common in terms of transposing, kids seeing blurriness and all this other stuff. A lot of that is because they're hearing sounds in an order that they only are remembering either the first sound in a word or the last sound in the word, and they tend to transpose based on poor auditory. So I don't think it's all visual. I do think that the phonemic awareness often is masked because maybe they do know a certain number of words by sight, but because they don't sound out words very well, and you can tell that by harder words, not just like, 3 sounds in a word, you will see that the phonemic awareness often is weak. And I'm not saying visual difficulties are not present, but some of the things you mentioned happen because kids do suffer with that particular phonological deficit, and then it manifests in things that can look like vision. For instance, a lot of parents I've worked with, they were told, oh, your child should go for vision therapy, and it didn't help one bit. And that was because they weren't getting to the heart of the problem. So I don't want to leave people here with thinking that that is, with reading, the only issue. Often it is something else. But what you're saying as far as vision certainly can be a problem because they're looking at screens, and they shouldn't be looking at screens all the time, and it does affect their vision.
Well, and the other piece is our world is very visual because of screens. Think about maybe our grandfathers or whoever, they would listen to a baseball game, right? And they could visualize the players and what's going on. When I said 2005, we started seeing kids that they couldn't make the movie in their mind when they read. They literally would tell me they see black or they see stars. So those were the kids who couldn't generalize, they couldn't comprehend. So they needed a program that could teach them how to do that. And that's what we then delivered. Let's fast forward. Now we've learned that not all kids can image symbols. So they might be able to image the concept, but they can't image the symbols. They're the kids that I'm talking about, that like they have been in programs that are well researched, excellent programs for 3 and 4 years and not making any progress because of that
also
vision.
Could be because they have a language problem. So you can't.
Maybe it could be, but I've seen kids
saying like that whole idea of imaging. A lot of that goes with, poor language conceptual understanding, and they can't track a story. They lose it, and that's language. So they can't visualize because they're not tracking language. They can't hold on to language. Judy, some thoughts that you have. I see you nodding or shaking your head. What are some of your thoughts?
Million thoughts. I want to give respect also to the chat. So here I go. I'm going to dive into the chat, and then we'll look at the comments that we had before. So, Sherry had a comment. She said, if I say I don't like tech, is that okay? Sherry, it's the literacy view. Your view is your view, so you got it. And then I'm going down a little bit more. Hold So Lindsay said, Lindsay is our fan of the week. Lindsay, I'm so sorry about that picture. Yes, AI helped me. I'm a tech nut.
You look beautiful in that picture. I don't know what you're talking
about.
about.
More likes on that picture and that post than anybody else. So thank you to Lindsay. We're proud of you. We love you. We appreciate you. She said, so many parents don't know that I always got told it's just like a TV by peers and adults, but I switched. Wait, where am I? Hold on. Faith, help me. Oh, hold on. This is a little confusing. I'm using a mouse that's a little tricky. Hold on. She said, so true, Perk, about the newer teachers. That reference that you made about the newer teachers.
Mm-hmm. And interestingly enough, my granddaughter has a first-year teacher this year. Pennsylvania just passed the law mandating cursive instruction. She went into a major panic because she can't read or write cursive herself because there was a group of people who went through schools and they didn't learn.
Yeah, sure. Those teachers coming out of college they just were taught print. They weren't even taught cursive writing, which is another
Right.
podcast.
Another problem was that tech is a very broad term. So I think that as this topic evolves even more, we've done episodes on sloppy language and literacy. I think it's going to get more granular as we discuss this topic more and more about technology. We're going to have to dive deeper. What's okay? What's not okay? What are we using? Why are we using it? And we're going to have to get really specific, right, Faith? What do you think? Faith, you're muted.
Well, there it goes. I had to do it one time.
Reward for being muted.
All right. So yes, I think that this is a conversation that has been circulating in those parent circles. From what I was seeing from the articles, it looked like parents started to fight back, and in some cases they're winning.
They really
And
are, Faith. They really are winning. The other day, I told you, I texted you, the parent couldn't be here tonight, but I was riding the Metro North and a parent was fuming about the use of technology, and parents are fighting back. They're asking superintendents questions and they're getting really, really specific. And I think that, during COVID, parents started to see what was happening in classrooms and hearing what their kids were doing. And kids now come home and tell their parents, and parents now have a better sense of what kids are doing. Kids are coming home and saying, oh, I was on this app and on this app and on this app. Well, we only have 6 hours and 20 minutes a day. How much time did you spend on each app? And it makes me think, Faith, we did an episode with a surprise guest today that we're not going to reveal because that's coming out next Tuesday. But, that person is extremely well respected in literacy. And she didn't mention that there are apps that are beneficial. But I think it comes back to thinking about what's helpful, what's not helpful, what is the research saying. Faith, can I ask you a question? Where are we going to get all these answers? Are we going to get them all tonight?
well, I want to ask Perk, what would you suggest parents do if they want to go into a school district and say, I think my kids are on screens too much, too often during the school day? How do they advocate? Is there research for them to bring in, or how would you do it? How would you go about advocating for change?
I am so glad you asked that, because I really believe the parents are the ones who have the power. I think a lot of teachers feel exactly the way we do. I think that districts, school boards listen to the parents more than they listen to the teachers sometimes. And I know in my local area, there are a lot of parent groups that are popping up now about being, wait until 13 or something, I forget the name of it, but it's like holding off, like-minded parents coming together to say, we believe this is what is in the best interest of our kids. And then they support each other. And so now it's, Johnny can't go home and say, well, everybody has a cell phone or everybody this, because no, they don't. So I think parents need to be loud. They need to be present. They need to be visible. There is so much research out there. Not that I'm trying to sell books, but get our book, because not only do we have the research in the one chapter, but we also have a QR code where all the research is there. Melanie Hempy was mentioned in one of the articles. Screen Strong, we have been friends with her for years. In fact, when she just started that, and she's exploding with all kinds of research for parents to take to school boards. They have policies on her website of, sample contracts, she's a wonderful resource for parents to use, but just be there, show up, and don't back down.
What about with AI?
I've connected with a wonderful woman. I just recently met her on LinkedIn. Her name is Shauna Berg, B-U-R-G. She is a real tech expert and an AI expert. And we've had lots of conversations about, should there be an AI curriculum? AI just happens so quickly that it's just everybody's kind of dabbling and playing with it, and it's here to stay. I'm sure I use it. I've written some really funny poems and songs using it. But Shauna has these wonderful ways that parents and educators can use apps to actually support kids. So the kids don't have to be on, especially at a young age. As kids get older, secondary level and so forth, they can be taught how to be responsible in using things. And that was all her thing, about really making sure that when we start to implement these things, that we do it responsibly, we think about it, it's not just thrown out there.
So, Judy, I think the schools are filled now with tons of, programs and computers and iPads and all sorts of things, Chromebooks. They're not throwing them away, right? So the key is now we have to find a way to dial this back, and yet understand it's not going anywhere. I think part of the problem is the teachers didn't have proper training. That was said in the article, right? And we didn't really talk about that, what the teachers are doing, because they don't understand how to use it fully. They use it superficially. And I think that one of the things that can happen now that it's here, at least take 10 steps back and make sure with whatever they have, they know how to use it well. And that it's doing something productive. As you said, Judy, before, where's the evidence? What's the proof? Are they really looking at what they have, and is it effective? What are some of your thoughts, Judy?
Well, some of my other thoughts were that, we have to really start being intentional about the use of our time. Our literacy blocks, our math blocks only have a certain amount of time. So we have to start thinking, what's the best use of our time? But I have another thought, and then we have some really good comments that were in our Facebook group from Rivka and friends. What are we thinking about tutoring online? That's become another really popular thing happening in schools, happening after school. A lot of the time we have MTSS structures in school where there's supposed to be intervention for kids. There might not be enough manpower, enough teachers, enough bodies. Sometimes people think that another company might be more solid than the teachers in their own building provide tutoring. What is the research and evidence saying about tutoring online for kids in reading and instruction, especially for kids that need help virtually?
I could tell you I did it. I tutored kids.
I know, that's why I was thinking, do I ask?
I was successful, but I was successful because I had ground rules. All right. And the rules were that kids were still writing by hand with a whiteboard, even though they were looking at me virtually. They still had to write on paper or a whiteboard. It wasn't just using a keyboard.
That's very funny. Wait, let me cut you off. Sorry, love you. That's funny you say that, because I just spoke with a company that provides tutoring for kids. And one of my questions was, do they need to come prepared with anything? And they said, no, don't worry. I said, do they need whiteboards, anything to write with? Nope, it's all built in.
Mm-hmm. So that was not the way I operated. The other thing I had that I insisted was a parent or some adult supervising to know they weren't fooling around on the computer, that they were working the whole time. So there had to be somebody present in the room while I was doing this. And that also ensured that they knew exactly what I was doing when I tutored, so that they could then practice during the week when I wasn't with them. So can it work? Yes, but you need rules set
You think
up.
it's as effective as in person? And my general preference, I did a lot of intervention during COVID. I did a lot virtually, but my honest opinion, and it's just an opinion because I don't have the research and evidence, I preferred in person. I prefer to sit with the
But
kids.
that's your preference.
It is. But I said that.
But what I'm saying, were the kids effective? And I could tell you I did it both ways, in person and virtually.
So my
And
question is,
what I'm saying is they were just as effective.
I know, but it would be interesting to see a study or some real meta or research on what form of tutoring is most effective, because right now I'm seeing tons of companies that are coming into schools, tons of tutors. Nobody really knows the backgrounds of all these tutors. A lot of these people that are from these companies,
But that's not a computer thing. That's, do the people know what they're doing? If you know
that's
what
still
you're
kids
doing,
on a computer, right? The kids are still seeing a computer. The kids are still seeing a body that they don't even know. We don't even know the background, but it's still technology use, right? In some way. And that goes back to what somebody said in the chat, that we have to norm the terms and get really, once we continue this discussion and push it further, we have to get granular.
again, what I'm talking about was not a program. It's not just putting a kid in front of a program. It was me doing the instruction.
But that's not what's coming into a lot of the schools.
But I'm telling you, you asked how it could be done well, and I'm telling you that if you're using the screen as a way just to be able to service someone from a distance, but they're still working with tools, handwritten tools. They're still communicating. There's still interaction back and forth with a live person, and there's someone supervising, making sure there's no monkey business going on, then it can work. So that's all I'm saying, is that you can't compare that to putting a kid on a program and walking away for 30 minutes and having them do whatever they're going to do. So that's a difference. Perk, any thoughts about what Judy asked with tutoring, or have you experienced that or know anyone who has done that?
I've known a couple families whose children needed a particular program and the schools were not well versed in it. In one case, it went to a lawsuit. Another case, it was just an amicable agreement between the school and the parent, where they brought in the program via a computer. And for those two children, it worked very well, because what the kids were doing was hands-on, like you said, Faith. They're manipulating cards, they're moving letter tiles, etc. And there was an adult present.
Right.
So it was the best it could be. It was certainly better than the child not getting that particular kind of instruction. So in that case, it worked. I personally, with Judy, I don't know that I could feel effective doing it, but that's just me, because I'm down on the floor with the kids. I'm hand over hand helping with writing. I mean, I don't even know how I would do that. And when I tutored during COVID, I just went to the houses with a mask on, you know.
And I think it's also different when it's one-on-one, right, Faith? You were one-on-one. What's happening in schools looks a little bit different.
That's a good point, Judy. Yeah.
There's 20 kids going into a computer lab.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking about that. Yeah.
But
I don't think that's good in any way.
What's happening in schools? 20 kids might be going into a computer lab. They're all sitting on devices. Maybe there's a proctor in the room. And, you know, the proctor can't run around like a maniac to check how all the kids are doing, what they're doing. Are they coming in with tools? Faith, you made a great point. So I think that there's just a lot to think about in terms of technology in our schools. Yeah. And is it helping kids?
You know what? I want to add one thought. It's something that has stuck with me since we wrote the book. I came across this metaphor. It was Nicholas Carr. I don't know who he is. He's a technology writer. And when we were looking at kids and their reading and their comprehension, okay, and you know how so many books now are like on their ebooks and everything's online reading and so forth. And a lot of colleges are seeing a lot of negative effects from that. Kids are admitting they don't read books from start to finish. They don't go deep. His metaphor was, when you are reading a real book, you are like a scuba diver. You dive down deep, it's quiet, you're really focused, you're reading the book, there's no distractions, you're kind of like in your own little world of whatever the book's about. Unlike when you read online. And it is so true. When you read online, he said it's like being a jet skier. It's like you're, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom. And it's true. Like there's so much stuff on the screens, you kind of don't even know what to focus on. And then, you know how they have the embedded links in the articles. And so you kind of go down that rabbit hole. And do you ever read the whole article? And so what the professors are now saying is they're finding that the kids are not really reading things deeply and completely. And so their comprehension is not as good when they're reading on a screen versus when they're reading a hard book. And I think that speaks to the Waldorf schools. It speaks to why you're starting to hear the pushback about the screen, the tablets and the Chromebooks, and please don't issue them to everybody. And really, let's start using some real books and paper. Our middle school decided to do a Wednesday free. There's no technology on Wednesdays. Like that's when we were talking about like, how do the parents address this? Like it's baby steps sometimes. And then the kids realize, oh, that was kind of a fun day. Oh, we did something different. So, but I think that comprehension piece is another really critical.
Oh yeah, there is research that kids
Yeah.
definitely comprehend better when they're reading off paper than when they're on a screen, for sure. I mean, the advantage of the screen could be you could make the print bigger, the font bigger. It could be clearer in that way. But overall, I think we could agree that the research points to paper being beneficial. Judy, I see you looking like you want to say something. I know that look.
Here's another problem. So there's no such a thing as really a snow day in New York City too much anymore. I have to say it. There's mandates with days and how many days kids have to be in school. So now there's been a big push to make sure kids have computers because there are some positives for safety.
FID days. We call them FID days.
Well,
flexible instruction days.
Well, there's mandates on how many days kids have to be in school, but if it's a giant blizzard, it could put teacher safety at risk. It could put kids' safety at risk. So people saw it as a positive. Oh, now they're not going to miss school. We'll meet the state mandates and everybody's happy. So what do we say to that? I don't want to go to work when it's a giant blizzard and there's 3 feet of snow outside. I have to be honest. What about you, Faith?
Well, my thought is, how much are they getting out of that full day of being on a computer, getting online instruction if, let's say, parents aren't overseeing this? What exactly are they doing? Who knows? I mean, it satisfies a day on the calendar that everybody could check off. And I think it probably works better for teachers than kids. That's my honest opinion. That gives them a day on the calendar, but I don't know if the kids are really getting much out of it. They'd rather be playing in the snow.
Well, I love the way we've done it, at least locally here in several districts. There are so many mandated dates, right? And so they have figured it out that the first kind of 3 days, if we had a lot of snow this winter, every superintendent in the 10 districts around me gave the kids a snow day because they need to go outside and play in the snow. And when they had their FID day, their flexible instruction day, it's not all day on the screens. It's a very limited amount of time. And sometimes the little kids would have like a packet of something, just keep it at home. Because for little kids, they could practice writing their letters. They could go count. And what the teachers have done, so creative and wonderful. They've come up with really fun, snowy kinds of activities that are learning activities, but they're play-based. And so the parents have that at home, so if it's a FID day, they have things to do, maybe a little screen time, but also other things. But they still have traditional snow days no more than 2 or 3, because then they have to start making them up. So that to me is a good compromise.
Let's go to some comments. I know I was muted again. And let's see. Family Schroeder, 3661. Let's see. How do you think parents and students who agree with all of this approach this with their district? I think what I'm seeing is, what about parents who like the approach of the computer? What about them? I think that's how I'm seeing it. That's a good question. What about families who really like that there's more technology in the schools? Not everybody's against it. What do you say to that?
I say educate the parents of younger children, number one, to the fact that we know brains and bodies need certain things at critical times of their life. And if we don't give them that, we will see the ramifications. We are seeing it now with all of the statistics. And so that, I think education is a piece. I don't think people realize what's happening. For the older students, secondary, I mean, suicide rates, go to the data as far as the rates of mental health. 1 in 4 teenagers have a mental health diagnosis. I mean, suicide is rampant, social media bullying, cyberbullying. The research is there on that. There are so many books that have been written about that. So I think some of it's education, and I think a lot of it is, sometimes it's baby steps. Like I said, the Wednesday free, no computers, and then your kids start to come home going, that was really fun, kind of fun. But there's a group of parents that they think it's all about technology and the kids have to be tech savvy and all that. The kids will be tech savvy by the time they really need to be on computers. Waldorf schools have proved it for years. I keep going back to that. They don't give them computers until 8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
So there's something to be said about that. If their parents, the parents who are all tech moguls, have said, I don't want my kids getting high on my own supply. I think that's pretty powerful. So they know something.
That's right. They know something for sure. And then Lindsay also added about the YouTube shorts getting shorter because of attention spans. That is absolutely true.
Yep.
You see all these shorts on YouTube. We have them in the hope that people will see a little bit and then they'll want to watch the whole thing. But for some people, just the shorts, that's enough because they just don't have the attention span.
Think about the storylines on TV shows. They've all changed. It used to be one plot years and years ago. Now it's multiple plots, and that's because of people's attention spans.
Good point.
Here's a really good comment from April on our Facebook group. Yes, so many play a book on a screen, a video of a song or a dance to transition, or use an app for practice when they could actually be engaging kids in serve and return conversations. They could be reading books and playing learning games and practicing critical early literacy skills through music, through movement, by singing with kids, by dancing with kids. If technology is truly enhancing the learning, great. But oftentimes it's more about convenience. Kids need to read, talk, sing, and play with other humans, and a screen can't replace that.
Yes.
So I think right there is the time to wrap up. So Perk, since you're not really so familiar with the Literacy View, you might not know that we have a BS button. So if you could press the BS button on 3 things that are happening in education, what would they be?
Oh my goodness. Well, I know we often hear things are never better. That's not true. That's a hard one. Playful learning is the same as creative unstructured play. No. What's the last one?
Meaning that there could be intentional types of planning for play, not just letting them go wild. Is that?
Well, I think some people will think, well, we're doing playful learning.
Mm-hmm.
That's different
Mm-hmm.
than creative unstructured play.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say kids need both.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so one of the staff developments I'm doing, hopefully next year, is the importance of just letting them play.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, that is funny that Perk said that, Faith. We just recorded with that surprise guest that's really well known in literacy, and that person said the same thing. So that's 2 for 1 in one day. Perk, I don't see anybody playing that much anymore.
Well, that the whole point is giving, districts. I am in one district where the superintendent gets it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like given his blessing, let them go out and play and don't feel guilty and don't think they're not learning, because they are absolutely learning. And one of our original endorsers of the book is a big play person down at Temple University, and she's written about play since the 90s. And this is her whole point. Like, they need to be in the dress-up center. They need to have a vet center. They need to have the kitchen. They need to be just playing.
They need to be just kids.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
That kind of sums that
Exactly.
one up.
Right. And then you can play with intention, with a lesson plan. Oh, we're going to be working on XYZ, but we're going to do it through this. I mean, that's great, but it's not the same.
Yes. Yes. All right, we're going to wrap this up. This was a very good start to a conversation about technology, the overuse of it in classrooms. We will share those articles with you. If you want more information, go to our newsletter. Remember, you can sign up at Faith and Judy at theliteracyview.com for our newsletter. Please share these episodes if you want to create some momentum around this conversation. We need to get parents, as Perk said, and I agree with her. I've written books for parents as well on the importance of being that voice, because school districts absolutely listen to parents, especially a group of parents. So please get involved. Share this episode, get the conversation going.
Website, theliteracyview.com. That's where you could also sign up for our newsletter and all of our updates. And Perk, thank you so much for being with us today. We really, really appreciate it. And I think that if there's any researchers listening or anybody that's doing research on this topic and wants to come on our show to discuss this even further, or anybody else who's passionate and has breaking news about this, please email us, like Faith just said, at faithandjudy@theliteracyview.com, faithandjudy@theliteracyview.com. We want to hear from you.
Great. All right, everyone. Have a great night. Bye.